And the following forum is a paid-for broadcast. The views and opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the host, station, or its owners. KMOG is exempt from any liability that should arise from these broadcasts. And we'd like to thank our sponsors for the forum: Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, Choice Auto and Truck, Pinnacle Propane, Hospitality Wireless, Dan Good Flooring, Anytime Fitness, Dana Law Group, and Choice Auto and Truck. Welcome to the forum. It is 4 minutes past 9 on a Monday morning, and our host, Charlie Seraphin.
Thank you, Chuck, and good morning, Rim Country. And our guest this morning is Gary Morris, who's the chairman of the GILA County Republican Party. And Gary, you've been doing this show since I was a young guy, four or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, we started about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's a great program, and Andy McKinney normally is here with me, and my second vice chair, and he's not here today, so you've got me for the entire hour.
Well, we're looking forward to it. We're going to catch up on what's going on with the Republican Party here in GILA County. We're going to talk about the President Trump's successes and some of his challenges, right?
Yes.
And we're going to have the honor of having a chat with the United States Senator Martha McSally a little bit later on in the program.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so what's top of mind for you this morning for the Republican Party in GILA County?
Well, the GILA County Lincoln Day or Reagan Day dinner is still on at the casino, so those that want to come down and have a chance to hear and speak to Senator McSally or Paul Gosar can do so. They get their tickets at GILAGOP.com, GILAGOP.com. And those that purchased tickets for Lincoln Day that had to be rescheduled, those tickets are still good and are carried forward to this event. So quite a number of COVID-19 precautions are being implemented for this event. But we're still going to have an opportunity to hear from Senator McSally and Representative Gosar and a chance to ask some questions. The beauty of the dinner is we always take questions from the audience. The other is the Republican headquarters here in Payson is open. It's at 434 South Beeline Highway, west side of the road. And you can go in and register to vote, to pick up candidate yard signs, candidate literature, and so forth. The other plus at this location is we have the Trump Depot. That's a store that has a lot of Trump merchandise. You can get Trump hats, shirts, flags, jewelry for the ladies, Trump-related jewelry. So drop right on in. And last major item for the Republican Party here is we, for like 52 consecutive quarters of reporting at the county recorder's office, have gained Republican registrations over Democrats. We are now 60.9% ahead of Democrats in the county on voter registrations. 10 years ago, we were 15 points behind, so we now are experiencing almost a 76% turnaround in voter registrations over a 10-year period. We're very excited about that, and the rest of the country, the presidential campaign has recognized that. A month ago, Vice President Pence called and had a chat with me over rural voter registration and efforts, and he certainly recognized what we've been able to do. It's a pretty dramatic turnaround and something that hasn't occurred in other counties.
So nationally, we hear a lot about Arizona becoming a purple, possibly, state, right?
Yes.
But that's not the case here in GILA County, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, not the case, but you are correct. There's a huge campaign effort from the Trump campaign in Arizona. We share our headquarters with the Trump Victory Campaign. They have staff there. They're placing phone calls. One of our volunteers, Lori Mills, has now placed over 50,000 phone calls to Arizonans or to help the campaign in other states. And that's a huge volume of phone calls to voters.
Now, I can tell you from personal experience that if you get a phone call from Lori, you will want to take it because she is a delightful human being.
Yes.
And someone who's very pleasant to speak with. So, you said it's the Lincoln Reagan dinner. When did you first incorporate former President Reagan's name into that
Well,
celebration?
the Lincoln Day is to celebrate the first Republican president, President Lincoln. That normally occurs in springtime because that's his birthday. And about 8 years ago, we decided to have a second fundraising dinner, and we titled that for President Reagan because he was a very successful Republican president, and it gave us the means to produce our dinner.
Would you allow me to share a story real quickly about President Reagan, a
Sure.
personal story, which I bet you don't know.
I bet I don't.
Okay, so if you think about President Reagan, he was very conservative.
Yes.
Right? And yet his popularity numbers throughout the 8 years of his presidency were enormously high. He never really had a significant dip in popularity.
Yeah.
And people have often wondered, what did that reflect? So when I really was a young guy, I got a telegram one day and it said, Nancy and I request the presence of your company at a luncheon at the
Wow.
White House.
Yeah.
And I thought at first it was a friend playing a joke, but it was a telegram and there was an RSVP number, so I called back and the number went right into the White House, and I said, I'm calling to RSVP off this telegram, and they put me to the appointment secretary and said, are you coming? I said, yes. So I went, and we got there at 8 o'clock in the morning and went into the executive building, which is right across, next to the White House, went down into a small theater, and I was there with 99 other people. And they paraded out each member of the cabinet, and we had an opportunity. There was no recording, but we could raise our hand, ask a question, take notes. And the last one to come out was Vice President Bush, and he said he was a little jet lagged. He just came back from China, and it was just a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
We went through the tunnel, came up into the White House, walked by the military honor guard, went into a room and sat down. President Reagan was at the next table. There were 100 people. And so I started asking the people next to me, who are you and where'd you come from? And they said, well, I came from Topeka, Kansas. I'm a reporter for this. I came from New Mexico. I came from Wyoming. I came from Illinois. I came from Wisconsin. And what I found out is that there were 2 people from each state that were invited to the White House to have lunch with the president, meet the cabinet. They were all members of the media, but none of them were from the Washington Press Corps or from New York City. And later in life, probably 15, 20 years after that, I met a guy in Dallas, and he said, oh, you were part of my program. And I said, that was your program? He said, yeah. We did it every month for 8 years. We invited 2 people from each state that were involved in radio, television, newspaper, or something like that to come in and be part of it. So that was an untalked about, brilliant line. Oh, we have United States Senator Martha McSally. We're going to, McSally, we will get back with her in just a moment. Sorry.
This material has taken
Sorry,
place.
straight into the questions.
It is a
Then we're
waterproof
taking
and
the phone calls.
scratch-resistant flooring. Shell flooring makes many different styles and colors to choose from. With an authentic look of real wood, you'll be amazed. So come visit us. at
So I gotta
810
cut your
North
mics
Beeline
off
Highway.
when she's
Check
talking,
out our
otherwise
new
she's not gonna
Shaw
have
luxury
any audio.
vinyl plank. And remember,
Okay.
we don't just do a good job, we do a dang good job.
Hi, this is Mike Kaiser.
Okay, you
with
got
Choice
it.
Auto
30
Truck
seconds,
Pacing.
just this
If
one.
you're looking for a quality pre-owned vehicle, check us out on the web at choiceauto.com. And don't forget, if you haven't seen our Arizona Muscle Car Showroom, we invite you to stop by anytime and look around, where we have a free car show every day. Also, if you're considering selling a vehicle, we do buy cars and take consignments, or we can help point you in the right direction. That's Choice Auto and Truck on Beeline Highway next to Ace Hardware. And see us on the web at choiceauto.com.
Welcome back to Rim Country Forum. Our guest today is Gary Morris, the GOP Republican Party Chairman for GILA County. And on the phone, we are honored to have United States Senator Martha McSally. Welcome, Senator.
We're doing great. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
How's your campaign going, Senator?
And I know, look, there's a lot of, understandably, people are very much focused on the pandemic and the economic implications, and a lot of challenges are out there. So my prayers are with everybody for your health and lives and livelihood. But we are now down to the wire here to decide the direction of our country, and there's a lot at stake. My opponent's first vote will be for Chuck Schumer, and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden in charge. They are going to ram through an extreme agenda, and it's going to be a very important choice. So we need President Trump to win Arizona. We need me to win Arizona to hold the Senate majority, and we've got to continue to fight for our freedom. There's a lot of issues in this campaign, but make no mistake, the radical left in their agenda is out of touch with Arizona, and we could spend hours talking about it, and my opponent's trying to pretend he's not a Democrat.
Senator, there's some talk about getting a second COVID-19 relief bill moving. What's the status on that?
Well, we're in conversations about what more might need to be done. The $3 trillion that we passed with the CARES Act and the other packages, not all of it has actually been spent and sent out. So we're continuing to work with the administration to ensure that our frontline healthcare heroes have everything they need. I'm particularly focused on small businesses and workers who have been displaced. We had such a strong economy going. We showed with President Trump and conservative policies of lower taxes and less regulations, our economy was doing great, but then people were asked not to work in order to save other people's lives. So we've got to ensure these small businesses continue to survive. The Paycheck Protection Program was a key part of that. So many small businesses in Arizona survived so far because of that, and there's still $130 billion left, by the way. So if you're a small business, self-employed, independent contractor, you can go apply right now for the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm focused on these very small mom and pop shops, one-person businesses, to ensure they can get through this, while also ensuring others don't fall into housing and health insecurity while we defeat this virus, which we will. We're going to keep investing in testing and in cures and in vaccines, while we ensure that we've got policies that are going to bring manufacturing home from China for American jobs and stop relying on China, our adversary who unleashed this virus on the world, for our PPE and our pharmaceuticals and other things. So these are the types of conversations we're having about what more we can do.
Are you optimistic that you're going to be able to get the economy turned back around, and what are some of the things that you're doing to ensure that that happens?
Well, absolutely. Look, this is an unprecedented, once-in-a-100-year pandemic. People need to realize this, that our country got hit with after we had such a strong economy going. The fundamentals of our economy, because of conservative policies, had our lowest unemployment that we've seen historically across all demographics. So we need to unleash that again as we defeat the virus and allow people to safely work. We've got to provide that support while we get through this together, which we will. But the fundamentals are there for us to come roaring back as the strongest economy in the globe and in Arizona as well. And also bringing jobs back from China. That's going to provide more opportunities for jobs here in America as we bring those jobs back and have manufacturing here. Let's be focused on Made in America again.
Senator, this is Chair Morse again. In regards to the potential for a second relief package, as you may know, I'm a fire chief also. In the first relief package, municipal fire departments were eligible for reimbursement, but they failed to identify fire districts for COVID-19 reimbursement costs. Could you ensure that that is corrected in any future relief packages?
Yes, we've heard from many districts like yours. Look, we pushed this through quickly. Speed was the top attribute we had, given the uncertainty of what was going to happen. We didn't want to have economic collapse. But we've heard from you and others about the fire districts and other special districts, and we want to make sure that you're all not left out. So we've got that for action, and we'll keep you posted.
And fire districts will greatly appreciate that.
The youth first responders are out there doing amazing things, and we need to make sure that you have everything you need and those essential services are not impacted by this.
Senator, I saw a television ad from your opponent who said that you're not protecting people with pre-existing conditions in the health care debate. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Gary, that's a lie. I'm committed to making sure people with pre-existing conditions can never be denied health insurance. We all agree on that principle. We just disagree on how to actually get that done. And if you saw all these Democrats running for president on the debate stage, you know, they're wanting to repeal and replace Obamacare with a government takeover of health care. So I guess they're not interested in protecting people with pre-existing conditions either. Over Arizona, every single time I'm out and about, who have pre-existing conditions, who right now can't afford their health insurance because Obamacare has failed them. So we need policies and we need initiatives that are going to allow them to get access to affordable health insurance at lower cost with more transparency and more choices. And we've got to do that while ensuring that people with pre-existing conditions are protected. Look, this is a fear tactic out of the left. They're going to do whatever it takes in order to try and gain power because we all either have or love somebody with a pre-existing condition. And I think it's just disgusting and despicable that they're playing on people's fears. But hear it from me. I will always protect people with pre-existing conditions while moving on initiatives that allow people to get access to affordable health insurance and health care.
And Senator, I understand that both the President and yourself are doing something about the high prescription drug prices. Can you elaborate?
Yes, for sure. We've been working very closely with the White House on this. Look, this is, the prescription drug industry is one where, look, we're conservative, so we believe in conservative principles where there's choice and transparency. And what we see is big pharma, oftentimes, you know, they invest in research, they come up with a new drug, but when that drug patent expires, they basically use loopholes to box competition out and they can keep the prices going up and up and up. And I meet people all over Arizona, seniors and hardworking small business owners who simply can't afford their prescriptions because the prices just keep going higher. And we cannot have people having to choose between paying their rent or paying for their life-saving drugs. So I have an initiative legislation that's going to cap the Medicare out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs because so many seniors can't afford it, and also close these loopholes so big pharma cannot keep cheating and boxing out competition. Once a generic comes in the market, it really brings those prices down. So we need to be able to incentivize that while also allowing Medicare to really drive down those costs for seniors for those drugs that are past their patent. You see all these stories on things like insulin or EpiPens. They've been around for a long time, but these pharmaceutical companies are just gouging people. So we're working with the White House, and I have legislation, and this should be a bipartisan issue to bring these prices down.
Senator, you and I have something in common. We've each written a book. I know what mine's about. Will you tell us a little bit about what yours is about?
Gary, what's yours about before I answer that?
Well,
I'm working on it.
Okay, well, I published, it's called Dare to Fly. It's been in the works for a very long time. I've had some unique experiences that I'm really blessed to have had, you know, being the first woman in U.S. history to fly in combat and command a fighter squadron in combat, flying the mighty A-10 Warthog. You know, I also fought an 8-year battle with the Pentagon when they were making our service women wear burqas and sit in the backseat of the car when they were stationed over in Saudi Arabia. So I share some of those stories that are maybe unique, but they're common human principles that I pull out of that everybody can relate to. How do you overcome fear? How do you find courage in your own life? I take you into the cockpit of the A-10 for my first takeoff ever solo, having never flown it before, no two-seaters, no simulators, and then also into the canyons of Afghanistan when I had major malfunctions happen while lives were at stake on the ground. And I just share my perspective on how I was able to find my own courage and overcome fear, for example, and build resilience. And I think those are lessons we could all use right now in 2020.
Senator, this is Charlie Seraphin, and I'm the one who wrote the book. The book is called One Stupid Mistake, Smart Decision Making in a Crazy World, and I highly recommend it for all members of Congress, and particularly the people on the other side of the aisle.
Okay, Charlie, that's great. All right, that's hilarious. I'm very interested. So what was the stupid mistake? Do I have to read the book?
We have to read the book.
Very good. Senator, Democrats have become criminal friendly, and by that I mean they're advocating, they did release serious felons during the COVID-19 event. They advocate no bail release of criminals, so they're back on the street almost immediately and continue rioting. They're advocating defunding law enforcement and have in 2 cities allowed rioters to take over a police precinct. What's your position in regards to support for law enforcement?
I totally support law enforcement. I actually did a ride-along with the Pima County Sheriff's Office Friday night until about 3 in the morning to continue to show my support for the men and women in blue and everything they do. These amazing heroes in our communities are certainly not getting paid much, and every single day they put on that uniform and they go out there to serve and protect our communities. This dangerous, radical agenda on the left to defund the police and to denigrate the amazing men and women who serve, we can all agree that when one person is a bad actor, like we saw in the death of George Floyd, they need to be held accountable. We can all agree that there's always ways to do better training and to ensure they have the right culture and the leadership that they need. I saw this with the military, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't support our law enforcement to keep our community safe and public safety. This just shows the radical left agenda of anarchy and mobs and defunding the police and the public safety implications of that we're already seeing with crime skyrocketing in these major cities that are all run by Democrats. There's a choice in front of us in November. Are you going to be for the radical left who's allowing the mobs and the anarchists to take over and attack law enforcement? Who's going to want to serve in the police and sheriffs anymore? We've got to ensure that we support them. We give them the resources we need. We actually need to give them more resources, not less resources, for everything that they're asked to do out there to keep our community safe.
And I want the audience to understand that the Republican Party is well known as the party of law enforcement. Keep that in mind when you go to vote.
Exactly. Look, people all over Arizona, when you call 911, when someone's breaking into your house, again, I was riding along Friday night when some of these calls came in, you want to make sure that there's somebody there to help you. They're not going to just sit and take the report after the crime occurs. These people put their lives on the line for us. They never know what they're running into, and often very complex and dangerous and split-second decisions that they have to make. And we've got to have their back.
Senator, it's also pretty well known that God helps those who help themselves, and Arizona is a pretty strong Second Amendment state. The opposition is really talking about limiting, or in some cases, taking arms away from American citizens. Will you share your thoughts on that?
Well, I strongly support the Second Amendment. I put my life on the line for our freedoms and way of life, our constitutional rights, and the Second Amendment. And this is also what's at stake here in this election, not just what will happen if, Biden and his advisor, Robert Francis O'Rourke, and Schumer and Pelosi are in charge, but, my opponent, this is a key element of his agenda and his national leadership, is taking away your Second Amendment rights. And I'm standing in the gap right now to make sure that our rights are protected. First and foremost, we've seen actually gun buying is up across the country because people are concerned about the public safety implications of the unrest and the mobs and the anarchy that's happening. And first and foremost, they're thinking about how to protect themselves and their families, and we need to protect their rights.
And Senator, for the audience, Mark Kelly is going to likely be your challenger after the primary. It should be noted that on March 5th, 2013, he purchased, and this is shortly after his wife was injured in a shooting, he purchased an AR-15 assault rifle and a 1911 model pistol at a Tucson store. He's been advocating gun control, but he certainly wants a weapon to protect him.
Yeah, well, if you look at that incident, he actually was turned away because he didn't have an Arizona driver's license because he was a Texan.
Yeah.
So, there are procedures in effect that people have to go through when they're actually going to purchase one of those. So, you have to go through that. We'll let people look into that incident and make a good decision.
Well, Senator, from the Gila County GOP, we want to thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an impressive interview. Thank you for coming on.
Well, God bless you guys. Stay safe out there. And look, we're going to get through this together, but let's get everybody engaged about the stakes of this election coming up in the fall, and let's make sure that we keep Arizona red.
And more on the Ren Country Forum right after this.
All right, good morning, Chairman Morse here again, and we do have the early ballots arriving at your mailbox for those that signed up for that. So I have some recommendations on electing state legislatures for District 6, which covers our Gila County area. First is Walter Blackman for re-election. He's been at the state capitol for his first stint as a representative. He spent 21 years in the U.S. Army, was a frontline tank commander in combat in Iraq, and at the state legislature he received recognition as the Rookie Legislator of the Year. He's a very quick learner and a veteran, and we recommend re-electing Walter Blackman. Brenda Barton is back for re-election. She took a 4-year break. Previously was a House of Representative for her full term. Plus that Brenda brings to the legislature is she's coming back, so there's no loss of, in regards to the learning curve. And she knows rural Arizona. And we need representatives to represent our rural needs and not Maricopa County. So we're recommending that Brenda be re-elected. We have some troubling concerns about a candidate, independent candidate, Art Babbitt. He previously was a Democrat, registered as an independent. We have photographs of him giving a speech at the Bernie Sanders rally. We also have records of his contributions to Democrats. In 1992, he donated to the Bernie Sanders effort to elect Bernie to Congress. And so he is truly a far-left Democrat and not a clean independent. So we are recommending that you stay with Blackman and Barton and disregard Art Babbitt.
All right, we're going to take a real quick break here. We'll come right back. All righty, we're back with Forum 935.
Good morning, and Chairman Morse here again, and on the phone we have Dwight Kadar. He's a Republican activist over in the Sedona area, and he and I and the Gila County Republican Committee and other committees in District 6 have some real concerns about candidate Wendy Rogers. So Dwight, welcome to the show.
Gary, thanks for inviting me. It's a real opportunity. Before I get moving on Wendy, let me give you one other little factoid about Art Babbitt. Relatively recently, he made a $250,000, a $250 contribution, not thousand, sorry, a contribution to Raul Grijalva, Arizona's communist congressman down at the southern end of our district. Just so you know who the real Art Babbitt is, but that's not really the reason I want to call him in. But yeah, we've had concerns up here in both in CD1, which I know you guys aren't part of, but as well as LD6 on Wendy Rogers for the past 6 years. She has ruined our opportunity both in 16 to beat Tom O'Halloran for this seat when we had Sheriff Paul Badiou, and then 2 years ago through an absolutely horrendous scorched earth campaign on an absolute gentleman, Steve Smith, and a character assassination of him, claiming he was a sex trafficker. It cost Steve the primary election, and Wendy lost to Tom O'Halloran. So we have watched Wendy Rogers operate in this rural area for the past 6 years.
And for the audience, District 6 incorporates Gila County, Navajo County, Coconino County, and some of Yavapai County. So it's a large district. And Dwight, I understand that she has run 5 previous times and not won a single election because she can't connect with the constituency.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She's run now in two different congressional districts, Congressional District 9 twice, and Congressional District 1, the congressional for a Congress seat twice, once in 16 and again in 18. Never won a general election in either one. And she also won in Legislative District 17 back in 2010. I guess this was before redistricting, as a state House representative, and lost there as well. But her MO is the same. It is a smear campaign, and I think people have gotten wind of what Wendy Rogers is and who she is, and she does not represent the values of rural Arizona and LD6.
You have some concern about residents?
It's interesting. She claims we've actually looked at the Coconino County registered voter record, and she does have a property. It is a 600 square foot mobile home off of Route 66, which she is claiming as a primary residence. The interesting part is, if you look further into the report on every candidate, and anybody can do this, she actually has her ballots, her mailing address is her Tempe address, which she and her husband Hal own down in Tempe on Erie Drive, which is a beautiful 3,000 square foot ranch home, which happens to be about a mile away from their business address on Rural Road in Tempe, and only about 15 or 20-minute drive from where she keeps her private plane in the Mesa Airport. So, and she also, interestingly enough, Gary, on the tax records, the Maricopa County tax records, she also claims that as a primary residence. As far as we have been told by tax authorities, claiming more than one primary residence for property tax purposes is a violation of the Arizona Department of Revenue. Big concerns that, while she has a residency, a registered voting record, that she really doesn't live here. And if all of the campaign materials, when she's out and not out, she does not ever talk about rural Arizona issues, the land, the forest, the water issues, the rural issues that we all deal with day by day. It's all about as if she was running a national campaign again. She talks about the securing the border, sanctuary city, all the kind of buzzwords that if you were running for Congress you would use. But that's not what this job is. This job is to represent LD6 in rural Arizona.
And let's reinforce this to the audience. She's violating law by not having a proper lawful residence in Flagstaff. She's been living in the metropolitan area of the country of Maricopa. Therefore, over many years living down there, does not have a sense of rural needs as a legislator, state senator. So we want people that grew up in this neighborhood, understand rural needs, and being able to represent that down at the state legislature. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. As somebody once pointed me, the last thing rural Arizona needs is another Maricopa County legislator, because they really do not understand our unique needs up here in rural Arizona.
Dwight, we're always told follow the money. When you follow the money, where do you go?
Well, that's really interesting. The Secretary of State's office has a very robust elections campaign finance website. It takes some digging and getting used to. Being a former finance chief kind of my wheelhouse. So I started looking at it, and this is, this state campaign, Wendy Rogers, the last report I have looked at, it may not be the recent June 30, but the last one I looked at, which would have been March 30, she had raised more than $400,000. That was about a double than what Karen Fans, the senator, the president of the Senate, and Rusty Bauer, Speaker of the House, had raised. And when you started driving deeper into the details, much of the money, in fact, up to 70, 80, maybe as much as 90%, is either out of state, primarily places like California, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. Those are all democratically run states. Or out of district, in Maricopa County. Not up here by small donors that you would expect to see in rural Arizona. So she has a huge war chest and the question is how did that happen? Well, Wendy was one of the Arizona fundraisers and bundlers for the Jeb Bush campaign starting in 2015. And I think what she's doing is reaching back into that Rolodex of those contacts and trying to raise more money. So that's my big concern is why would people who don't even live here be supporting her to that tune? And then the latest one we've just seen, your listeners I hope have seen the mailer that have come out from the hit pieces, as I would say, against her opponent Sylvia Allen. And if you look at the address on it very carefully, it says paid for by Rural Arizona PAC, P.O. Box 75650, Washington, D.C. And I went, wait a minute, what's that? And so I went poking around again into the the campaign finance reports, and come to find out, there's a very well-to-do gentleman in Aspen, Colorado, named Hillman, who has put $115,000 into the Rural Arizona PAC for Wendy to use for campaign mailers. And I got to tell you, as a resident of rural Arizona and a kind of campaign finance kind of guy, I got to go follow the money. What does Wendy Rogers owe Mr. Hillman to spend $115,000 on a state campaign where a state senator makes $24,000 a year, which is not much at all?
And Chairman Morris.
It raises a huge question in my mind, and it should in any voter in LD6.
And let's reinforce this for the audience. Outside money of $400,000, who will Wendy be holding to if she gets elected state senator? Certainly not beholding to local rural voters. Very important issue. Follow the money influences the candidate, and she'll be beholding to outside sources.
Yeah. Gary, let me raise one more issue. There's a really interesting site that looks at campaign finance. It's called Open Secrets, and they've got something called an anomaly tracker. And I apologize to your listeners to be nerdy about it, but this is truly the way you find out what's going on. And the fact that last cycle, 60% of the money that Wendy raised through this group of what we believe are formerly Jeb Bush folks went to a campaign consulting firm called Go Right Strategies. Well, when you look at that individual, who's running that, it's a gentleman named Spence Rogers. Interesting last name, huh? We're not sure who Spence Rogers is, but it appears to us that there is a familial relationship between Wendy and Spence. Important, well, because in this election cycle, Wendy, again, in the report we looked at, had already spent $175,000, of which $70% of that went to Go Right Strategies. This is kind of the same sort of thing that Bernie Sanders and his wife did with some campaign money, if you remember, that kind of moving around. That's what it appears on the surface.
There are two critical elements in every political campaign. One is money, and the other one is endorsements. Talk to us about endorsements.
Well, it was interesting, being politically astute, and kind of the folks here in LD6 knowing I'm kind of keeping an eye on these things because of our historical experience with Rogers and the way she campaigns. Back in May, there was a very short. It was only on her campaign website for about 24 hours. But what she had done is she had taken the endorsement list from her 2018 campaign for Congress and said, these are the people that are endorsing me for 2020 Senate race. Well, the two names that really kicked out at me were former Senator John Kyle and current Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, both who have personal relationships with other candidates that are running. And in contacting them, they said, no way, this is not. And so, and I can't confirm this, but my understanding is that her campaign team was basically told, you take those down under threat of legal action. So that was the first one. Then last month, and earlier, about last month, there were a series of social media posts by people in Taylor and in Snowflake, including a businessman, a pastor, principal of high school, Jake Flake's wife, Mary Louise. And so I asked the folks in Navajo County, in that area, please check these out, because it was clear from what was up there that her image had been photoshopped onto something, or her campaign had photoshopped. Come to find out, we were able to confirm that all of those were fake endorsements. And in fact, if you go to a search of that area, you will find people saying, I did not endorse it, nor would I ever endorse her. People are very unhappy about this, these fake endorsements. Well, unfortunately, it continued, because just last week, there was a mail piece that came out with an endorsement of the Arizona Citizens Defense League and the National Gun Rights, the National Association for Gun Rights in Colorado. Both of those organizations are what is known as tax-exempt 501c4s. They are prohibited by law from playing in elections. And on their websites, you will see this says, we do not endorse candidates. They can't, legally. They can jeopardize their not-for-profit status. Let Wendy Rogers put those up on her, and you can actually see them if any of your listeners have one of the mailers from Wendy. You'll see on the back that Wendy Rogers endorsed by, and there's these two logos. That was an illegal use. Arizona Citizens Defense League was contacted, and they also claimed that was an illegitimate use for two reasons. One, that they didn't do it, and two, they can't. And in fact, unfortunately, what that can do is jeopardize their tax-exempt status for use of that. So I understand that there's potential legal action. The Colorado-based one is pretty much the same issue. This is an unlicensed use and an illegal use of a campaign trademark or logo. My concern, if somebody is willing to unduly try to influence and mislead our voters, that's not somebody I want representing me down in Phoenix on major issues.
And let's reinforce the audience again. We have a candidate that's falsifying claims that she's been endorsed by certain individuals. And the Arizona CDL is an 18,000 member organization, and the chairman of that organization emailed to all 18,000 that that organization did not and does not support Wendy.
That's correct. Yeah. and in fact, what they're now claiming, what the campaign is now claiming, is that the AZ-CDL PAC, which was involved in campaign for about 2 years, but because of rule changes and just the administrative burden, the parent organization, AZ-CDL, their board shut it down in February. And so therefore the use of this is twofold. One is there was a PAC, and now they claim that this endorsement came from the PAC. Well, the PAC was shut down by the organization. Unfortunately, the chairman and the
About 3 minutes
treasurer of that PAC
response
has
to
gone
do
rogue
by
and
the top of the
continued
hour.
to claim that they have the ability to do this.
Nice.
Well, they don't get the ability just because their name is on the bank account. To run a PAC is done and used by the parent organization. They get these rogue individuals do the administration of the PAC, and I think you're going to see you're potentially going to see some legal action over this. It's kind of a mess. And speaking of legal action, I didn't. One thing we didn't chat at really is Wendy has a problem, I think, with the rule of law. A couple areas. Her business, according to the Democratic Congressional Committee report on her, it's a 158-page report when she was running in 18 for Congress. It was a dossier done on her. And one of the things they found was that she's been sued 10 or 11 times, her business in Maricopa County. And she has a home inspection business. So that was troubling. And I think the other thing that's probably even more troubling is she is still involved in a lawsuit from the 2018 slander and defamation suit that was brought by Senator Steve Smith, not by him, but by his employer, when Wendy tried to smear Steve Smith and his employer for claiming he was sex trafficking. The term that she was using and the pictures talked about sleazy Steve. And why do we know that? Because my wife Andrea, many of your listeners may know, is an anti-sex trafficking person with the global organization Shared Hope International, and has been an ambassador for the last 5 years. There is a scourge in this country on human sex trafficking. So to charge someone with that is really egregious. But that's what this lawsuit is about, and it's still a pending lawsuit.
Dwight, we are most grateful for the research that you've done and the work that you've done, and for joining us here today on the RIM Country Forum.
Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity. I know everybody in this district has their own ideas. I know they're busy with their lives. I've been blessed to be retired up here in beautiful Sedona and have the time and the inclination and the effort to research these things. And I'm appreciative of the opportunity to share these facts with your audience. Thank you.
You're listening to the RIM Country Forum, and a big thank you to Gary Morris, the GOP Republican Party Chairman for Gila County. Thank you for being here today, sir. Nice to meet you.
And thank you, and for the audience, again, the Gila County Republican Party, as well as the Rim Country Republican Club, are very concerned about the ethics of Wendy Rogers, and both have voted that they cannot support her as a candidate for state senate. And you've heard the reasons why. Lying about endorsements and unethical behavior. We just don't think she's a good candidate.
Coming up next.